on, particularly this past week or so: minimum wage, increasing veterans benefits, and increasing development of Alaska's natural resources. Tonight, Alaskans will have a chance to chat with Senator Begich and ask questions. If you do have a question, please press 0 on your phone, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. If you get disconnected, here's the number to call again. It's 877-519-6647, and the access code is 152218. That is posted on Senator Begich's Facebook page, as well as his website, begich.senate.gov, where it will also be live streamed if you do want to share with friends. Please do follow him on his Facebook page, facebook.com/Begich, or at Senator Begich on Twitter. And just for folks who are just joining us now, please do press 0 if you have a question for Senator Begich, and we'll try to get to as many questions as possible. At the end of the call, if he has not had a chance to get to your question, you will have the opportunity to leave a voicemail, and he will follow up with you on that. And now we will go directly to Senator Begich to kick us off.
Thank you very much, Devin, and thank you all very much for calling in tonight or getting on the phone with us tonight. I try to do these town hall meetings on a regular basis just to keep you up to speed on what's going on in Washington. I'm going to keep my comments short so you all can ask the questions you would like. This is statewide, so I know we'll get a variety of questions, and I'm looking forward to those. First, let me say this week we didn't get enough votes. We're going to be back at it, and that was raising the minimum wage. As you know, there's an effort back here in Washington to raise the minimum wage to $10.10. Also on our ballot in November, there'll be a $9.75 minimum wage adjustment. Just raising it at $10.10 will get people out of poverty, lift a lot of folks out of poverty. Just in Alaska alone, it would help 1,700 veterans, just to give you a sense of individuals who are subjected to minimum wage and should be able to make a living, a decent living. We'll be back at it. We were unable to get it passed this time, but we're working with the Republicans to see if we can find some common ground here to make sure that people can make a decent living. Let me also say I've introduced a piece of legislation, a bipartisan piece of legislation on veterans issues. This would ensure that survivors, disabled veterans, surviving spouses and children and disabled veterans would receive a COLA, a cost of living adjustment, just like people who receive Social Security, because they have to be allocated each year. So I've sponsored that legislation. It's a bipartisan piece of legislation. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get that moving and pass that. So again, there's a lot of other issues on the table. Next week, we'll be dealing with some energy issues on energy efficiency and trying to do, again, a bipartisan bill, and I'm looking forward to working on that. But let me really just end there because I would love to hear your questions and your comments, and if there's a gap in questions, I'll give you additional updates. But let's get right to your questions because that's really why I do these town hall meetings, so we can at least hear what's on your mind and what's concerned to you. I'm looking forward to being back in Alaska this week because I know the weather is fantastic, especially in South Central. Let me go to the first question. I don't know, Devin, if you're ready, but I am.
Yep. We will start with Rhoda, who is in Fairbanks. Rhoda, you're live with Senator Begich.
Rhoda, go ahead.
Oh, I think you got my name wrong. It's Rosie.
Oh, Rosie. Go ahead, Rosie.
I didn't think I'd be the first up, but
you're it.
I had my question written down. Hold on.
Okay, no problem.
See where to put it.
Rosie, you looking for it?
Yeah, sorry. It's gonna take me a second. Sorry.
If you know the subject matter, just go ahead and throw the subject matter out there.
That's pretty complex. Could you come back to me in like 2 minutes? I'll have it.
We'll try to do that. I'll leave it to Devin to figure that out.
Okay. Rosie, we'll try our best to do it, but you can always leave a voicemail too, and please do call the office, but we will certainly try to get you back in the queue for you to give you some time to remember it. Let's see.
Devin, while you're looking for the next question, let me just tell folks also one other thing we're working on. I sit on the Appropriations Committee, And we're very fortunate, Alaska, is to have both myself and Senator Murkowski on the committee. And so we're now starting the appropriations process. This will determine the funding levels of all the departments. The committees are meeting now. We hope to have those bills on the Senate side up in front maybe by the end of June, first part of July. And if we do this on this time schedule, we'll be very fortunate to be able to get this done without a continuing resolution or a threat of a shutdown of the government, which is really good news. The House is starting to pass some appropriation bills, and we just want to make sure that we can get ours timed right, and we're working very hard. We had some meetings this week in regards to the Arctic and some of the funding we need there, our military and some of the needs that we have there, especially around benefits of our military, making sure that we don't increase the costs of the commissary at the military base in Anchorage, or making sure that housing costs don't go up for our military. So let me go ahead and pause there, and if the next caller's ready, we'll go to that. There's one coming up.
Okay, we've got Michael, and Michael, you are live with Senator Begich.
Michael, you are on. I think it's...
Yeah, I was wondering about your the Medicaid and the Medicare and the Obamacare. I'm kind of wondering, you guys, it just don't seem to be happening. I think it should be. It's getting put on the back burner the way I feel.
Well, let me try to answer that for you, Michael. First, I think you're on Medicaid. As you know, we've expanded Medicaid, and the current governor, Governor Parnell, is not supporting that right now. So it's up to the governor to expand that. That could be up to 40,000 Alaskans that could be covered if the governor would just sign on and expand Medicaid. Here's the deal with Medicaid. We, as taxpayers in Alaska, are paying through wages and federal taxes for this, and we're shipping that money to Washington, D.C., and we should get that money back for our people, and yet the governor doesn't want to do that. On Medicare, we did extend until March of next year the doctor reimbursement rate, which is important. That keeps our Medicare patients having good physicians and being paid properly, our physicians being paid properly. Now, saying that, we need to fix this problem permanently. I have sponsored a piece of legislation to do that. That would ensure that we would not have this concern every few months if doctors are going to get reimbursed for their Medicare costs that they're incurring for their Medicare patients. So we're still working on that. And then the other issue you mentioned, which was regards to, I think it was the VA or other medical issues, and the health care bill. The health care bill passed. No longer do Alaskans faced with denial for insurance coverage. We still have some more work to do on it. There's some more fixes we need to do, and I'm working on those to create plans that have a lower premium, more affordable for folks, but also making sure small businesses can access affordable health care. So those are, I know you had a statement and just wanted to kind of hear on the health care issue, so hopefully that helps there. Next question.
Okay, and just a reminder to folks who did just join us, please do press 0 if you have a question for Senator Begich, and we'll try our best to get to as many callers as possible. Next, we're going to go to Shirley, who is in Ketchikan. Shirley, you're live with the Senator.
Good afternoon, Mr. Begich. I'm Shirley Boyd from Ketchikan. I'm elderly. We moved into these apartments about 3 years ago. I have a grind to pick with local government and everybody else. Our elders are going through the crack. The first one up here at this housing, a lady died and she laid up there 7 days. Nobody did a thing till they finally got the cops and everything. As for me and my husband, we were in the apartment and excuse me.
No problem.
We ran out of heat, and we stayed in this apartment for almost a month. And nobody lifted a finger, made an effort, or even checked on us to see if we're okay. The only people that ever helped our native people and our elders was Salvation Army. I give them the credit.
Which...
Now, I want to know, why isn't anybody concerned about the elders, and where could we get an advocate to have somebody back us up like any senator, you or Murkowski, somebody that could speak up for us? And
Okay, Shirley, thank you for your question. We're going to give Senator Begich an opportunity to answer it right now.
Shirley, thank you very much for that. I'm going to give you a phone number. I'm going to repeat it a couple times so people write it down. This is in our Ketchikan office, Bob Weinstein. The number there is 225-3000. 225-3000. We have a Ketchikan office. I would love to have you or any of your residents feel free to call our office. Now, I will tell you, those sound like state-assisted living or elderly care housing or senior housing, so we won't have a lot of authority over that, but we can surely reach in and see what we can do. We'll call a state agency and we'll shake some trees. We want to make sure you have quality living, you have conditions to live in there that are not substandard, and if there's some problems there in that elderly housing, we will be happy to assist you or any other resident in being your advocate to whatever agency is managing those facilities. I have a feeling it may be a state-related facility, but let me again repeat that phone number in Ketchikan, 225-3000, 3000. Call our office, let us follow up, tell us which housing project that is. Bob Weinstein, who runs my office there in Ketchikan, we will follow up, we will rattle some cages and shake some trees. We'll be happy to help you. Next question.
Our next question is going to be from Michael, and he's in Fairbanks. Michael, you're live with Senator Begich.
Michael.
Hi, Mr. Begich.
Yes.
My question is increasing the minimum wage, will that not also increase the cost to the employer, therefore raising his prices on the whatever he's trying to produce?
Yeah, and I'll speak to you from being a small business person. I have a business. My wife has businesses, small ones. We pay above minimum wage. Why do we do that? Because that money they earn, they're going to put right back into the economy. They're going to spend in the economy. And the odds are, more than likely, more consumers, more buyers, more sales, more profits. If you go back in history, this is why, if you look at what Henry Ford did when he developed a vehicle, the Model T, and he said, I'm going to give people a good wage. And back then, he paid very exceptional. It was $5 a day back then, which was huge money. Why did he do that? Because he knew if there's more consumers buying his product or buying products, there's more money in the economy. And I'll tell you, Henry Ford was he was a very wealthy man at the end of the day. So, does it have some impact? Sure. But does it have a longer impact in growing the business? Absolutely. And that's what we should be focused on here. And another piece of this equation, by doing this simple act, raising the minimum wage, you can get, I forget the exact number, but I think it's about $4.3 or $4.5 billion savings every single year of less people taking food stamps. Food stamps that you and I pay through our general taxes to support. We will not have to do that because now they're making a decent wage. And the reality is we shouldn't be subsidizing businesses because they're not paying their workers a decent wage. But again, we can lower food stamp costs by ensuring minimum wage is paid at a decent level. We will increase the amount of money going into payroll tax. We also will secure more money going into Social Security and preserving that in the long term. So the better deal is improve the business climate by ensuring that people make a decent wage so then they can spend in the economy and it grows profits. I can tell you this as a small business person from the age of 14. My wife has been in business for over 20 years. Being born and raised in Alaska, I've seen the value of when we've had a higher minimum wage than the rest of the country and the impact that's had in a positive way into our economy. Next question.
Okay, our next question is going to be from Forrest, who is in Craig. Forrest, you're live with Senator Begich.
Hi, Senator. My question is that, I know you were the deciding vote to pass the Affordable Care Act, and I watched my premiums go from $140 a month to $340 a month, and my deductible went up a couple $1,000. And, I mean, you guys took all the nasty stuff and you set it aside for later so that you guys don't have to feel the heat for it. Clear back past the presidential election for some of it. And I'm wondering how you can, you can act like this is still something that's working. Because, the only thing on my policy that changed is that it has women's care now. I mean, and I'm a man, and I didn't really want to pay an extra percent to get, coverage for all my female parts.
Well, Forrest, go ahead. Forrest, let me answer your question. First off, and let me remind folks that before the health care law passed, 34% of Alaskans who went for individual plans trying to get it covered by themselves were denied health care coverage. That's a fact. Second, is the health care law perfect? No. Does it need improvement? Yes. Have I been working on that? Absolutely. I've offered a copper plan, which probably would fit right where you need to be, and that is it would have a lower premium. It would ensure that the basic preventive care would be there, but also the catastrophic that people are looking for. Also small businesses. I've introduced a piece of legislation that would ensure that small businesses can access health care, which they're not required to do right now. 1,500 employees, they're not required to access health care and provide it for their employees. But this would allow them, if they wanted to get a decent and good coverage. Is it going to be perfect for everyone? No. That's why we're working to improve it every day. And just to make the point, there are 60 senators. Everyone, I mean, if you go to North Carolina and that campaign out there, they'll tell you that's the deciding vote. When you go to Louisiana, they'll tell you that's the deciding vote. All of us participated based on what we thought was right. I campaigned on those issues. Now people aren't denied. 34% of Alaskans who go for individual plans are not denied. Now, saying that, let me also say, I run into people every day. I ran into an individual working at one of the VFWs who now finally has health care coverage, paying a low premium, low deductible, and a copay for their doctor's appointment. Or the 57-year-old who used to be under CHIA because he was diabetic and couldn't afford insurance. Now he's paying around $220 a month with a $500 deductible. Or the business that came to see me and talked about how instead what they did is they didn't have to provide health care for their employees, but they like to because that retains their employees. They gave them a raise, they went to the marketplace, and many of them came out way better in the situation that they had before. So if you are having an issue specifically about your plan, you should feel free to call my office in Juneau or anywhere in Southeast, but Juneau, 586-7700. We'll be happy to see if there's an opportunity to see if that plan you have was not the best plan of choice. We have 34 choices we can have, but we are not going back to the days where 34% of Alaskans who tried to get a health care insurance for themselves were denied. Next question.
Okay, our next question is going to be from Earl. I'm not sure exactly where you're calling from, Earl, so if you could let us know, that'd be great. You are live.
Good evening, Senator. How are you tonight?
Very good. Hope you're doing well.
I'm trying. I'm calling you from King Salmon.
Oh, excellent.
I guess if you're in business, you probably know, too, like the biggest obstacle I've ever had in business is overcoming government. And before I even start, I'll tell you, I don't have a political affiliation. I just say I'm an American.
Okay, that's good.
I want to tell you two things that I've seen down here this spring. And the first one was our Park Service folks took a whole truckload of 6-gallon boat gas cans that were full to the landfill and disposed them. And then the Fish and Wildlife guys built a great shop, a big shop, a maintenance shop. And one of their folks told me that there was one of their outbuildings that was pretty good size that they got to tear down because they exceeded their maximum allotted square footage of buildings. So my question to you is, what are you folks in the Senate doing to reduce spending and cut down waste?
Thanks, Earl. Earl, let me try to answer that for you. Let me say also, Earl, those two situations, if I made notes while we were talking here, and I'm assuming you, because you're from King Salmon, these were happening in that region, because we'll follow up, especially the illegal dumping, because that's not legal to dump fuel into a landfill. Second, if there's an issue about square footage and they got to tear down a building, we'll be on that lickety split, because that is what's wrong with some of the bureaucratic, and I'm on the phone here, so I won't say the words I would use, but let me just say we will follow that up. And if you want, please call my office if you got specific dates on those issues, and we'll follow up. But definitely, let me talk about reducing spending. First off, in my office here, I made sure over the last several years we reduced over $1 million out of my Senate legislative office. Second, I have made sure through legislation that I've supported and sponsored to make sure no senator receives any raise of any kind during these last five and a half years since I've been here. Third, I will tell you, I buy my own health care. I pay for it myself. I get no government copay at all, period. And I buy it off the Alaska Exchange, and so I pay insurance like everyone else. So I'm cutting there. Now, in a broader sense, here's a couple things we did. Last year's appropriation bill and National Defense Authorization Bill, we worked on an idea. I chair the subcommittee that has jurisdiction over the Coast Guard. Department of Defense had some planes they were going to get rid of. And instead of just getting rid of them and wholesaling them out, we thought there was a better way to do this because the Coast Guard needed planes, and these ones would work pretty well for them. By doing that simple action, we saved over $800 million. Since I've been in office, the national deficit each year has gone down from $1.4 trillion to about $500 billion and going down. I support the balanced budget amendment. I think it should be a constitutional balanced budget amendment. I'm one of the few Democrats, I might be the only one on that bill, but a few Democrats that support it. I think it's the right idea. We need to hold the line and get to zero. I can tell you another program that was in the Defense Department, an old system that was being developed called MEADS, a missile defense system. By our actions and my push, along with Kelly Ayotte, Republican, Senator Ayotte, we were able to ensure that program was canceled. No one wanted it. We saved over $400 million. There are many that we've done in that area, but to sum it up, national deficit each year from 1.4 trillion down to 500 billion and going down. I've cut my own budget here, taken no pay raise, pay for my own insurance, not costing the government a penny for that. So there's a lot of little things and big things that I've done in order to start reducing the budget. And I know no one liked the sequestration, but I voted for it. It was painful, but it got us to cut the budget. And no one liked it because no one wanted to make the decisions. I've had to make those tough decisions in business as well as in my government service as mayor of Anchorage. Let me say again, if those two specific issues, you call my office, especially the one on the spill, and you know the date roughly, we will follow that up, and we will absolutely follow up on this surplus building. They're not tearing down something if it's in good shape, in my opinion. Next question.
Okay, and just a reminder to folks who are on the line, press 0 if you have a question, and if we don't have a chance to get to it, you can leave a voicemail at the end, and Senator Begich will follow up. Next we have Heather, who is in Anchorage. Heather, you're live with Senator Begich.
Heather.
Hello, good afternoon. Hi, how are you doing today?
Good.
My question is, well, it's kind of like a two-part question. Why isn't there more police officers in the parking lots of our troubled areas with the clubs? When the clubs are closing, to me, there's more. Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Go ahead. I hear you.
Hello?
I hear you. I got your first question.
There's more police officers, it seems like, in the daytime in Anchorage, Alaska, than in the nighttime when that's where the problem is predominant. So I'm trying to figure out why isn't there like at least one police officer to patrol whichever the clubs are in the parking lots to prevent the violence instead of no one being there. And it's mostly at the clubs at night where the problems are existing. And I have another.
Why don't you give me the other question too, and I'll answer them both. I'm sorry. Go ahead and do the second question. I'll answer them both real quick.
Yeah. Also, I wanted to know if it would be possible for more police officers to patrol, like in Fairview and Mountain View, in the summertime when children are outside playing, when there's no school, instead of being on the main roads, be in the, in the vicinity of, the back streets and everything like that, where there is more problems and more issues.
Great question, Heather.
I have.
Let me go and answer that, Heather. Let me go and answer that so we can get as many calls in as we can. First, Heather, thank you for noticing what I think is a growing problem in Anchorage specifically. I mean, I just read another shooting that occurred, I think it was last night. This is an epidemic, and this is uncontrolled, and it's outrageous what's going on in the city. When I was mayor, we hired in almost 90 new police officers because we knew to make a great community, you got to make a safe community. In the last 5 years, that's just been going downhill. There are less police working today than the last 6-7 years. There's less ability to patrol. It's not the police officers' fault. To be very frank with you, the Assembly is trying to do a good job on this, but the current mayor is not funding them. I had a press conference recently in Anchorage specifically about the crime situation. A couple of things I've proposed. One, to increase the funding to the COPS program. Last year we did put some more money in there. That is money that can become available for local communities to hire more police officers. So I've asked to have additional money put in there so we can make sure we can help these communities that are having a struggle right now. Also, legislation to make it more difficult for drug dealers to be operating on local parks and local school areas. Again, making it tougher crime and tougher penalties for that. I've recommended several other ideas. It's on my website, but I agree with you. Those issues are local, so we don't have the ability to assign, obviously, police officers and so forth. But I will tell you, there is a lot less police officers on the street in Anchorage today than there was when I was mayor. I know that. And I hope the Anchorage Assembly, I know they're anxious to do it, and I hope this mayor gets off the dime and puts some more more police officers on the street. We need them. We need to have our communities safer. I'd give a lot of credit to the community patrols. These are citizens working in neighborhoods. They're doing a great job, I know, in the Anchorage community. We need more of that volunteerism because that helps our police officers have more eyes on the streets. But there is an epidemic growing. But I can tell you from my end here in Washington, D.C., putting more money in the COPS program gives access for that mayor to pull some of that money if he wants to and apply for it so he can put more cops on the street. I hope he does, because a safe community is a way better community for all of us.
Okay, next we have a question from Kate in Soldotna. But before we go to Kate, just a reminder for folks to press 0. And when you do leave a voicemail, if we don't get a chance to get to your question, please make sure to leave your contact information as well as your first and last name. And we're just going to go to Kate now. Kate, you are live with Senator Begich.
Hello, Senator Begich. I am really concerned about the amount of money going into politics and political campaigns, especially after the McCutcheon versus FEC court case. I can't afford politics anymore. And I was wondering how close Congress is getting to coming to a resolution about this, maybe even a constitutional amendment saying that corporations are not people and money is not free speech. And I was wondering if there's a bipartisan effort on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate, this is a big question. I know just for me that, I'm involved in the campaign now, and there'll be millions spent by these outside groups just dumping money and, not caring much about what's going on in Alaska. They just want power in Washington. So I am on a constitutional amendment. I've co-sponsored a constitutional amendment that corporations are not people. They're not people. And they do not have the same rights as you and I do. And so the Supreme Court was wrong on that decision. But in order to change it, we need a constitutional amendment. So I was one of the sponsors on that. Second, I sponsored legislation that has ensured that disclosure will occur. In other words, if you're going to spend this dark money, this mystery money, this money from these outsiders that come in, we should know who they are. Nothing wrong with that. Third thing, there's a piece of legislation that's just moving this last week here that would give the power to Congress in more definite terms constitutionally to regulate election spending, which I again will support. But each state will then have to step to the plate. None of these are bipartisan yet. You know, we're trying, but we're not getting a lot of help from the other side. Now, saying that, the last thing I'll mention, I know there's a very good group in Alaska, a bipartisan group, that is asking people running for office to sign a pledge that they will fight for these issues of changing the Constitution so corporations are not people and we can limit some of this crazy expenditure on campaigns. I think I might be the only statewide candidate in any office that has signed that pledge. I think that's an important pledge. It says very clearly that we will work, I will work to change these rules so we limit the spending and get corporations out of buying races around this country and making sure that people are the folks that participate in campaigns. Thanks for the question. Next question. Next question.
Oh, our next question is from Victor. Victor, you're live.
Hello, Mr. Begich. This is Victor Lord in Indiana.
Good to hear from you, Victor.
Yeah, good to hear from you too. I'm behaving. I just want you to know.
Well, I gave you an extra A+ tonight for that.
All right, good. Anyway, my statement to you. I wish I had a question. I just got your notice just the middle of today, and I really think you're prepared. But I know you're on the Commerce Committee, and as you know, we're facing a kind of a devastation up here with the Yukon king salmon once again. They're not at the mouth yet, but that's the predictions at all the meetings I've been going to, and I sit as an advisor on the treaty panel also. I was in Canada, and I was down to Yukon and in Fort Yukon this winter also, and it doesn't look good. And this opinion is just from myself and my village here. It's not, I'm not representing no Canada chief or Europe or anybody, but we have a Dr. Howard that works for the state of Alaska. She works out on the ocean, and she seems like the lone wolf out there as far as the state of Alaska. I know that's our jurisdiction goes 3 miles out past the coastline, and out there is kind of a federal ball game. Well, I'm just asking of any kind of monies for studies out there, because I think that's it's my belief for our problems with our king salmon are. We've done a lot up here on the rivers. We've cut back a heck of a lot.
Yes.
Almost down to
Well, Victor, let me say this.
Go ahead.
First, Victor, thank you for everything you do in your region. You are a leader out there, and I know the work you do with the treaty and with Canada is very important long-term. The Yukon, as you know, has been suffering multiple years, not just this year, but as we know, last few. Senator Murkowski and I were able to secure some money for disaster relief, which is now being figured out how that's going to be expended. But, you know, we can't just do disasters every year. We got to solve this problem. So, as you mentioned, the state has a lot of jurisdiction on one piece. The other piece is what we can do. And as the chair of the committee that handles Coast Guard, NOAA, fisheries, and the Magnuson-Stevens Act, here's a couple things we've done recently. First, about 3 weeks ago, we passed, and this is amazing, 4 treaties, international treaties that we signed on to go after these pirate fishing that goes on in international waters. These are people stealing our fish and get no consequences. They're thieves and they're pirates. So we have passed a treaty about 3 weeks ago. I was one of the sponsors of those treaties, and these are important for us to go after that piece of it. Second, in the Magnuson-Stevens Act, we're looking at the bycatch, and is there better ways that we can improve and limit the bycatch? Because as we know, that has some impact, even though the bycatch over the last several years has gone down in total, we know there's still some impact, and we have to work on that. Third, acidification of waters. Now, I know some people want to put their head in the sand and say climate change isn't happening and all these things. We can argue over the science, but here's what's happening. The waters are warming. Habitat's changing. There's acidification in the waters that's impacting our fisheries and shellfish. So it's important for us to go after this issue, and we are putting some resources to that. There's not a lot on the federal end, but I do want to thank the legislators from your area, from the western area, and especially urban area, Senator Johnny Ellis, because they put money, about $3 million a few years ago, 2 years ago, for research into acidification of the water, so we understand what we can do here to help resolve some of the issues that are impacting our fisheries. And fourth and final, I again want to applaud the legislature, because that's where this was generated from, $30 million I think it was 2 years ago also, to do additional research and understanding what is causing the king salmon to be limited as it is, or in this year, maybe none being able to be caught by the subsistence users. So all that is in motion. I wish there was a simple answer, but there's not, because there's still a lot of unknowns about what's causing the king salmon impact. But at the end of the day, we must, and I want to say this with capital letters, underline, that we must ensure that subsistence users have the fish, especially the kings, that they need to prepare for the winter. We got to do everything we can. There are no simple answers, but I can tell you as the chair of the Fisheries Committee that deals with this issue, as a senior member now on that committee, as well as my clout and seniority in the U.S. Senate, I'm going to use every inch I can to make sure we resolve or at least find the answers so we can get on a pathway of sustainability for our kings. But thank you, Victor.
Okay, next up we have Wanda, who is in Anchorage. Wanda, you are live.
Here.
Wanda.
Hi, Senator Begich. I would like to know what you're going to do about concurrent receipts and the windfall elimination tax, as well as the fact that they keep reducing or taking away medical benefits and such from the military, such as the fact that my husband has a hearing issue that's a result of his military service, and when he went out to have his hearing aids looked at, they told him they no longer treat veterans for in audiology.
Well, Wanda, let me, that last comment, I would like you to call our office on that, on the last one, in regards to his hearing, and see if there's something we can do there. But on the broader sense, first off, the concurrent receipts, this is something that this year will be the last year that it will come back to full status. I think it's 50%, because as you know, there was some reductions that were occurring, penalizing veterans, and this year it's been phased back in, trying to resolve this problem. It's not to the total amount, but it's back coming the right direction. Second to that, I know on the reductions on the COLA, we were able to put that back into play overall for retirees, so there's no reductions to COLA, period, which is important. But here's our battle that we have today. We have the Department of Defense. Once again, they want to increase TRICARE costs. They want to, for active military, they want to increase the housing costs from the soldier. And they want to reduce, and this impacts both veterans and active members, they want to reduce the support to our commissaries in Anchorage. Well, that could mean for a family of four, a sergeant with a family of four could be an increase of about $2,000 a year. They can't afford that. So we're fighting that right now. The House has just supported the effort not to have those cuts. I'm going to support those efforts not to have those cuts. I've done that every year and will continue to do that, because the contract we made with men and women who signed up to serve our country, we need to honor that contract. We're going to have bumps in the road sometimes, but at the end of the day, we want to make sure their benefits are whole. So again, we got the COLA back in place. We're working on these other cuts they're trying to do to prevent them. And the concurrent receipts, we are back to about 50% and growing. And this is the last year, I believe, that will make it whole again. So we're moving in the right path on that. So again, we'll work double time. You can rest assured. Next question.
Okay, our next question is from Pam in Fairbanks, and folks can still press 0. We do have time for many more calls, so just a reminder. Pam, you are live with the Senator.
Hello, Senator Begich.
How are you?
Fairbanks. I'm doing great. We have beautiful weather. My question touches on two of your topics, raising the minimum wage and developing Alaska's natural resources. After a huge fight in the legislature, education funding today has yielded a headline in our paper, 46 teachers learn their jobs are in doubt. The most important development of Alaska's natural resources is between our two ears, and the creativity of young people and the knowledge can keep Alaska strong and going into the future. One argument I haven't heard about the minimum wage that I think about a lot is these students are paying a much greater share for their college educations than it used to be for state schools. And they're paying
Yes.
huge, and so in terms of even if it's young people earning the minimum wage, if they're expected to go to college, they need that money for college or for their training.
Yes.
And it's an argument I haven't heard much. And my question would really be, just what more are you doing for education through your work in D.C.?
Thanks, Pam. First off, a lot of people may not remember, but I served as the chair of the Student Loan Corporation for Alaska for 7 years, as well as the Post-Secondary Education Commission for 7 years. We took that corporation that was on the verge of default. We got it back into the profit and reduced interest rates down to about 2.5%. So we did a great job. They're up now again, but we were able to reduce it while I was there. Now, saying that, what are we doing here in Washington? First, I've sponsored a piece of legislation that would allow private loans as well as government loans that you've received, student loans, to consolidate them and refinance them at a rate of 4%. Second, I'm working with another senator on new loan package that would allow students to borrow at the same rate that banks borrow at. You know, these banks, we bailed them out, we saved them from themselves, but they borrow at 0.25%, 0.5%. And the reality is, if you want to invest in something that has a great return long term, that's a student. That's someone who's going on to a higher education, maybe voc ed, maybe career education, 2-year, 4-year degrees, whatever it might be. It's important for us to make those investments. So I will tell you, those are a couple things that I'm working on, but there's more work to be done. And I do think the legislature and the governor made a critical error by trying to take public education out of the Constitution. That is a mistake. They didn't like me telling them that when I was down there in Juneau, but it would be a mistake. The greatest equalizer in this country, what makes this country a great place, is public education. The ability, no matter who you are, where you come from, how much you make, you can walk through the door and get a great education for free. That makes our country not only great, prosperous, and creates an opportunity of innovation and entrepreneurs all throughout our country because we allow this moment. And to see teachers getting laid off, you know, I come from a family of educators. My parents came up here pre-statehood. They both were teachers. My 2 sisters are teachers. My sister-in-law is a retired teacher. It's just appalling to me, this attack that some have taken on public education. Now, we can agree, I believe, that there are still challenges in our public education system, and we shouldn't be afraid to face them. We should try our best to improve on those and try to solve those problems and fix those problems. But to just throw it all out is a huge mistake. And so I'm a big supporter of public education. I think you're right on about students and the minimum wage, that the more money they make, the ability to afford college is greater, and we should be working on that everywhere we can. Affordability of college or higher education or certification programs, career education is important if we want a thriving, competitive economy, not only in Alaska, but for this nation. So, sorry, Pam, I got on my rant there. I'm a big fan of education. Go to my website. There's a lot of bills I'm working on and items I've supported to get education moving forward. Next question.
All right. Our next question is going to be from Mark, who's in Palmer. Mark, you're live.
Hello, Senator.
Yes, Mark.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, Mark.
Hey, my wife and I were undeclared, but we're pretty concerned about federal overreach, especially in state matters. One item in particular that's kind of concerning us right now is the Pebble issue. They paid a lot of money for those leases, and we believe that they should be allowed to go through the state permitting process before the EPA declares their plan non-viable, before they even present their plan. They buy these leases with the expectation that they'll at least get fair treatment in presenting their plan. And we're just wondering, is Alaska going to start putting up a big sign that we're closed for business?
I don't think so. I'll tell you why. In the last 6 years, there's more than 500 new jobs in the mining industry. I've supported mining across the state. Red Dog Mine, I helped them with some permitting issues to expand. Down in Southeast, Niblack, Bocan, 2 other mines we helped. One actually to work in the roadless area so they can move forward on their mine determination of their value. Greens Creek, they needed another permit in order to put their tailings off to the side. I'm simplifying that, but that's basically what it would do. We helped them get that permit. Kensington Mine was having a huge battle all the way to the Supreme Court. We worked with EPA to get that issue resolved. Now they're moving forward. Donlin Creek, another very good project moving forward, could employ 1,000 people once in production. Pebble Mine was a little different. I didn't support Pebble Mine. I think where it is located with regards to the fisheries and the incredible habitat that's in that area and our natural fisheries is important to do whatever we can protect. Wrong mine, wrong place. Now, your question on EPA. As I just said, several of these areas we worked through, banged on EPA and other federal agencies to get the permits necessary. In this one, we made it very clear to EPA that this should be focused only on this specific mine and their specific issues. And this is one time where EPA will say, here's the issues you need to resolve to mitigate. It doesn't stop the mine from going to get their permit. They can go get the permit tomorrow if they wanted to. They can go apply tomorrow, and they'll actually know what some of the issues they need to resolve as they move forward. But I fought, for example, in Fairbanks, the EPA wanted to regulate, let me just say over-regulate our coal plants, the one that's needed to be redone on the university. We work double time. Now our coal plant does not have to meet those other standards that others do in the lower 48. The Healy coal plant was closed. We worked with Region 10 EPA, convinced them and the National EPA that that plant can be operational and do it in the right way. Now they're moving forward and operational. So there's wins and there's losses, but no, we're not closed for business. We have more people working in the oil and gas industry than we've had in years. The natural resource development is moving forward. I'm a huge proponent on natural resources in the Arctic and National Petroleum Reserve. National Petroleum Reserve, we're about to, for the first time ever, have commercial development producing upwards to between the two fields that they're about to tap into, the two wells, well areas, will be 50,000, give or take a few thousand barrels of oil a day in the next 2 to 3 years. So we're doing a lot of business. We got low unemployment in our state, more employment in our natural resource development, and other employment throughout the state. So I feel like we're moving in the right direction. Do we have challenges with the EPA? You bet. Do we battle them every day back here? Absolutely. Do we get some wins? Yes, we do. Next question.
All right, we still have time for several more questions, so we're going to go to Lon. And if that's not your name, could you help us out?
Hello?
Yes, my name is Lon Valdez.
Yes.
And good evening, Mark.
Yes.
I work for the state, and the windfall profit tax, I understand that you have a bill in to get that eliminated. How far have you got with that?
Is this the windfall elimination that you're talking about, where you get penalized because you actually have another job sometime that paid Social Security?
Yes, sir.
Yes. We have multiple Democrats and Republicans on that bill right now. I've talked to the chairman of the Finance Committee. That's where this bill will fall because it deals with revenue issues. It's an expensive fix. We're continuing to work to get additional sponsors. I think we picked up another one today. Our goal is to get as many sponsors so we can show the chairman of that committee that this is a clearly bipartisan bill and it's about fairness. For those that are listening, what this is about is if you're a teacher or a state worker and your system did not pay into Social Security, you have a retirement, TERS or PERS, that you're going to receive. But let's say during that time you took a part-time job also, and that job paid Social Security, and you got enough credits to get Social Security payments after working that part-time job, or maybe you retired from the state and then you picked up a second job later. Well, the way this works is the federal government, Social Security, penalizes you because they say, well, you already got a retirement that didn't pay into Social Security, so therefore, even though you paid in your second job in Social Security, we're not going to give you that. We're going to reduce it based on your other retirement. That's unacceptable. And the bottom line is people should get their money back plus interest, or they get a payment out of Social Security for the money they put in. That's what my bill does. And this has been fought year in and year out, but we have a good bipartisan group, and we hope to have some opportunity in the Finance Committee that we hope to have a hearing at some point. But thanks, and we'll continue to work on it, Lon, and it's an important piece of legislation.
All All right, next we're going to go to Don, who is in Soldotna. Don, you're live.
Don?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please.
This is John Cook from Soldotna, Alaska.
John, good to hear from you.
I would like to know if we could get some help with the VA down here. We have a good doctor and a pretty good staff, but as far as I'm concerned, the amount of people we have down here, a lot of us just soon not try to make an appointment, and we're not getting a fair chase. If the doctor recommends somebody locally to relieve the long travel, 300-mile round trip to see a VA doctor, they should have space down here in this hospital set aside for the vets. They don't have to travel. That's a long run all the way up and back. I can't even go 2 blocks from the house. I am getting help. But the VA has got a bad name down here because they don't pay their bill. And it's mostly because of the paperwork they have to go through Anchorage. Why should this man not having another doctor down here to give him some help in a bigger place? We've got a couple thousand vets down here. That's probably not even a close figure. And a lot of them don't even go. Now they have to
going to give Senator Begich. Oh, I'm sorry.
John, let me try to answer.
Give Senator Begich a chance to.
Yeah, John, let me answer that. Go ahead.
Approval to Anchorage is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Let this doctor down there make the approval.
Yeah, no, John, you got a good point here. Now, one thing I did, I campaigned on an issue, which was the Heroes Health Card. The goal was to bring care closer to home. So you don't have to go to Anchorage or fly to Seattle because we don't have a hospital, a VA hospital. We've been able to do 2 things since then. One, we have a landmark new program that's over the last year has been implemented with all the tribal healthcare delivery systems. For example, in your area, the Kenaitze tribe just built a beautiful new health facility. If you haven't seen it, you should go by there. They now have an agreement with the VA to take care of veterans right there in your community. We also have another program that's attached to it called Veterans Closer to Home program, meaning that you can get care closer to home. This is a pretty new one, and it's being developed, but that is to solve problems like you have where you don't want to go to Anchorage, and I don't blame you. If there's a doctor nearby, you should be able to use that service. But the Kenaitze tribe there with the new, beautiful, multi-million-dollar, world-class hospital clinic there can now serve veterans. And the good news about that is the VA will pay them, will reimburse them, so you don't have to worry about that. So I would ask you to reach out to the Kenaitze tribe and their clinic there and get the service you'd like. Also, I'd ask you to go to my office there and they can help you, Kim there at 283-4000, 283-4000. My office there, she'll help you get situated so you can get that service. And I would love to ask you to ask other veterans to do the same thing. Call our office. But Kenaitze tribe is an incredible opportunity to deliver healthcare service. They do this all over the state. I was down in Homer recently, and a veteran had the same situation. He had a foot issue. He couldn't drive to Anchorage. Seldovia Clinic took care of him. He is a happy, happy veteran because he got that service right there near his house, near his home, and the VA reimbursed that clinic. So again, Kenaitze tribe has done a great new hospital. I would encourage you to check in there or first call my office if you'd like, Kim, and she'll be happy to help you there. Next question.
Okay, our next question, we just have time for 1 or 2 more, is going to be from Andrew, who is in Palmer. You are live.
Hello, Senator Begich. Andrew Couch here in Palmer.
Yes.
Question I would like to ask you, you kind of mentioned the priority for subsistence use. I would like to ask what you are doing to protect the subsistence use and opportunities of all Alaskans. Currently, the federal regulations seem to prioritize subsistence uses by rural Alaskans, but when that occurs, it at times federal regulations or proposed regulations would take away from most of Alaskans who depend on hunting and fishing opportunities, even in times of abundance, at least what the state calls abundance, when we have enough fish and game to meet subsistence needs.
Andrew, I'm just going to interrupt you because we're running out of time, and I want Senator Begich to have an opportunity to answer your question. So, Senator, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, Andrew, let me try to answer that for you. First off, about 2.5 years ago, the Interior Department did a study to determine after 20 years of co-management of subsistence, what does that mean? What's the impact been? We've had, I think, one hearing. I've done one at AFN. Those hearings are to look at this issue in a much broader perspective. But I will say, I understand where you're going with your question. One of the first priorities I do have is within the Alaska Native community, especially in rural areas, they need to have their subsistence capacity, and that's one thing that I'll continue to work on. I know your question is about urban areas and people who live off the land and how to protect that. That's a much more complicated area because that's a lot of state-owned and state-managed areas, which we do not have a lot of authority on. And as you know, this issue has been debated for 20-plus years from a constitutional perspective, but I will say that within rural Alaska, especially in the villages, where subsistence hunting and fishing is critical. They don't have a grocery store, they don't have a Walmart, they don't have a Safeway to go drive down the street to, that we need to do everything we can to protect that right that they have enjoyed for thousands of years. Next question.
Okay, we have time for one last question, so we are going to go to Rosie, who is in Fairbanks. You are live.
Hello, Senator Begich. My concerns are with the Keystone Pipeline. I don't think it's a good idea. We don't need any more dirty oil coming through our countries, turning into toxic wasteland, and it's killing all the wildlife. We are destroying the earth. And cannabis is a natural biofuel source, and it's such a versatile raw material that its products not only compete with petroleum, but with coal, natural gas, nuclear energy, pharmaceutical, timber, and textile companies. Methane and methanol production alone from cannabis grown as biomass could replace 90% of the world energy needs. The difference is that cannabis source is renewable, cheap, and clean, and the petroleum or coal sources are limited, expensive, and dirty. 30% of the cannabis seed contains oil suitable for high-grade diesel fuel, as well as aircraft engine and precision machine oil. In 1935,
okay, Rosie, I'm sorry. I just want to give Senator Begich a chance to answer your question. This is going to be our last question for the night. So, yep. Senator, if you want to close this out and answer Rosie's question.
Sure. Thanks, Rosie. Thank you for your question. You obviously have a lot of research there. Part of that question, you'll be able to vote on that in November because one of those issues will be on the ballot. But on the broader sense, the Keystone Pipeline, as we have seen over the last 4 years, the amount of oil being shipped now on rail cars has gone up from 4,000 a year to 400,000 rail cars. Just yesterday, another derailment occurred. Very unsafe way to move oil. The Keystone Pipeline already has over 500,000 barrels moving 500,000 barrels moving already on a daily basis to Chicago. This is a phase 2 to that, moving down to Louisiana, and it's only another 500,000. No one complained on that first one. It's a good project, and it's important that we have a broad spectrum because otherwise Canada is going to move that through tanker off of Vancouver and that area, and we've seen what happens when people move stuff by tanker. The risk goes up greatly. Now, your bigger question on a multiple source energy source, I agree with. I'm a supporter of solar, hydro, geothermal, wind energy. I've supported projects throughout Alaska on Fire Island and Western Alaska, working in Fairbanks to help them figure out how to bring natural gas to their community so we can lower the cost of fuel in their area. I agree with all those alternative energy sources. Alaska's on the cusp of having 50% of their energy coming from renewable energy by 2025. So I think there's a lot of opportunities. It sounds like there's another potential source of energy, and we'll see how that all plays out. But I think you need to have a broad spectrum, all the above kind of look at energy. Let me say this, and I think that was Rosie, who was our first caller, who didn't have her question right away. Now we're glad we were able to connect her back up, so we thank you for calling us, Rosie. Let me end and just say thank you all very much for listening tonight. Thank you for participating. Again, if you have questions, make sure you leave a voicemail with your contact information. We'll try to answer those for you. But I can't say enough about these teletown hall meetings. They're a great opportunity to hear from folks and hear from you, and I really appreciate the time you've taken tonight. Again, thank you all very much. Have a great time and a great evening and great weather in Alaska. And I'm going to turn it back to Devin.
Thanks, everybody, for joining tonight. As Senator Begich said, as we wrap up tonight, please do leave a voicemail if you can. And the office will be sure to provide a response from Senator Begich as soon as possible. And a reminder, please leave your first and last name as well as a way to contact you. We'd like to get to as many folks as possible. And we did well tonight, but as always, we'd like to make sure that everybody does get a response.
And
so please do feel free to leave a voicemail.
Devin, let me interrupt you.
Go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, let me just interrupt you. I know I apologize for those that are still on. There was just a news clip someone was handing me that just broke in there. Looks like 2 Alaska State troopers were killed in the Yukon River village of Tanana today, and there's an investigation going on. Our hearts are out to those families. We are thinking about them. We know our troopers do an incredible job and get into risky situations, and we're hoping that we'll see some investigation and see what happens here. But again, to the families of those 2 troopers, we're thinking about you back here. We know it will be a traumatic time right now. So hopefully all Alaskans will be thinking about the troopers' families that have passed, the 2 troopers in Tanana tonight. Thank you again for all joining us tonight. Have a great evening.